Hi friends, it's Julie. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here with a book review video for you guys. And I know I don't do standalone book reviews very often, but honestly, I just really wanted to gush about this book and I want more people to read it. And that is If You See Her by Ania Ahlborn. So this is Ania's brand new book. It just came out in May. And this completely blew me away. Like, I ended up loving this so much more than I was expecting to, because this isn't even my favorite type of horror. This is a possession slash like haunted house story, which isn't something that I usually love. But oh my gosh, guys, this was so good. This has solidified her place as my all-time favorite horror author. I'm just so blown away every single time I pick up one of her books. And while this isn't my all-time favorite of hers, Brother is still my all-time favorite just because it checks so many of like my backwoods horror boxes. This is definitely number 2. It was just so good. So now I'm just going to give you guys a very quick synopsis of this book. I don't want to give too much away. I feel like with so many horror books, it's better to just go into them somewhat blindly, but I want you guys to have somewhat of an idea of what this is about. So in this story, we are following a man named Jesse Wells, and when he's a teenager, I think like 16 or 17, him and his two best friends, Casey and Reed, decide late one night that they're going to go out to this old abandoned house that sits on like the outskirts of town. You know, it's that house that everyone's always making stories up about, you know, things like that. And Jesse doesn't want to go. This house just really gives him the creeps, but his friends decide that they're going to go out there. So they go out, and while they're there, their best friend Reed ends up committing suicide at this house. Like, this happens in the very first chapter. And then after that, we go into the future, and Jesse is now married. He has a son. He's a teacher at the local high school, and his life is just kind of stuck in this rut. And Casey comes over to his house one night, and he just looks terrible. Like, he looks like he hasn't been sleeping, hasn't been eating, and he tells Jesse that he wants to go back out to this house. Like, he needs some closure, and he wants Jesse to come with him. And Jesse doesn't really want to go, but his wife kind of pushes him to go. She thinks it'd be good for him to get some closure as well. And so Jesse decides ultimately to go out there, and then something terrible happens, and then a lot of terrible things start happening. So that's all I'm really going to say about the plot, and I just want to go over a few things that I really loved about this book. Number 1, hands down, the writing. It was just so well written, and I know that I've said this multiple times when I talk about Ania's books, but her characters are just fantastic. Like, I become so invested in her characters, and that's exactly what happened in this book. I cared so much about what was happening to Jesse, and Jesse and his relationships are really the strong focus of this story. Yes, there are some very creepy, scary moments for sure, but really we're following Jesse and, like I said, his relationships, and just how, with all of these things going on, just how these relationships just start crumbling, especially the one with his wife. It was very hard to read sometimes because you just want to reach through the book and be like, why are you doing and saying these things, even though you know why, but still reading it was hard, and it was so real. Like, as you're reading it, it was just written so well, and like I said, I'm just so blown away by her writing every single time I read one of her books. Now, I do have 2 things that I didn't necessarily love. The first was, okay, if there was this old house that, you know, you were becoming obsessed with, don't you think you would want to like research all that you could and figure out like what's going on with this house? Like, what happened at this house? How long has it been there? Who used to live there? Like, wouldn't you have all these questions? And with the internet, you can find anything that you want. And I kept waiting for Jesse to want to do that, to want to find these answers, but that didn't happen until almost at the end. And it just really surprised me and kind of irritated me about his character just a little bit. Maybe that's just me. I mean, it wasn't enough for me not to enjoy the book, but I just thought it was kind of unrealistic because I feel like so many people would just want to be trying to figure out everything they could about this house. So that kind of irritated me. And number 2 was I felt that the ending was just a little bit weaker than what I was expecting. I mean, it was good. Like, don't get me wrong, it was not a bad ending at all, but I've come to expect these very, like, just gut punch of an ending from her books. Like, every single time I finish one of her stories, I'm always like, ugh. And I've come to expect that, and I love that. I love her endings so much. And while this one did get me a little bit. It just wasn't quite what I was expecting. It was just like a little bit weaker than what I was expecting. But like I said, it was still a good ending. I want more people to read this book. I just wanted to gush about it, and I wanted more people to read this book. Those are really my only two criticisms of it. And I do think that if you enjoy possession stories, if you enjoy haunted house stories, if you like a good slow burn character story, then definitely give this one a try. I think you will really enjoy it, and I want more people to be reading her work because I feel like she is so under talked about and so underhyped, and I just absolutely love her books, and this was no exception.